Hello and welcome to the Drawing Your Requests video. So this was from our first year anniversary. We did a form and we asked you guys to give us some drawing requests. So we have 4 today. The first one that we're starting out with is a Sanrio character. We were asked to draw our favorite one, and if you know your Sanrio characters pretty well, you might already kind of know where this is going. We are drawing Cinnamoroll. So I started out with this shape and I did not at all like what I had done, so I had to go and restart the head and ear shape. I ended up liking the shape a lot better. I feel like it gives his little cheeks some chub and the ears look a lot better. I also like the disconnect and the non-lemon head kind of shape. Then I went ahead and drew in his eyes, and I do go ahead and fix these because they were a little lopsided at first. Then I go in and I draw the mouth. This also takes a few tries because I have to get the sizing done right. Cinnamoroll has these little lips, so I had to go in and make sure that they were accurate to his character. I also had to fix the eye there because it kind of looked like his eye was twitching, and so that wasn't what we wanted. I added the blush and I wanted to make it look a little bit like doodly, and then I realized that Cinnamoroll is a little too big for my canvas. So I go ahead and I shrink his head, and then I go ahead and get started on the body after I fix the little lines on his ears to be a little more even, just so they don't look like he has 2 different sized little gaps there. At first, I do not like how I drew the body at all, but I like the little feet that I drew. So you'll see me go ahead and make adjustments here, especially with the head size compared to the body size, because clearly Cinnamoroll has a big head compared to his body, and I just did not make that right there. So I give him a little bit of a bigger head, and I tilt it to the side a little bit, so he's kind of a little off, so that he's almost looks like he's like skipping around while he's walking. So I start with redrawing the little arms because, as I said before, I liked the way the little feet came out, so I didn't want to change that. I just wanted to change how the arm positions were and make sure to clean up the little remnants that we had from the other areas. So I go ahead and I draw his little arms, and then I decide, he's still looking kind of off, but I didn't really know what else to do with it, and since this is my first time drawing Cinnamoroll, I figured, you know what, this is a pretty good Cinnamoroll for my first drawing. I also realized that I need to expand my canvas a little bit, so I go ahead and I fix that so that we have enough space for the rest of the drawings, and then I move Cinnamoroll back over to the left side. Now, we do still have coloring to do. This is just the line art, and right here you can kind of see me struggling to decide whether I want to start on the line art or start on the coloring. Eventually, I did decide that I just wanted to do every character at once so that everyone gets to see their drawing first, like in full, before we move on to the next one. So I went ahead and did some coloring on Cinnamoroll. Really, all I had to do was the white in the background. As you can see, there's also a yellow streak from a different layer, so I do go back and fix that. He will not have a yellow crescent on his forehead or anything like that. We do go in and fix it after we're all done filling in all the white of his body. I also used a slightly bluish white so that it wasn't completely stark white, and it kind of stayed with that pastel-y kind of color. And here you can see me going in and fixing the yellow marking across his forehead. Now that Cinnamoroll is all done, I go ahead and get started on the next one. I decided to change the background color because the green that I'm using for this character is a little bit on the yellower side, so I didn't want it to, again, clash with the background, so we changed it to a nice orange. What we are drawing right here is an orc character. So I start with a little kind of lopsided head, and I did that on purpose because I wanted it to look a little bit derpy-ish, you know? I'm drawing a little chibi orc, so I don't want it to be super symmetrical and perfect because I feel like that's not really what orcs are. I draw in these little pointed ears and a little triangle nose, and we are actually going to make this orc a girl. So you'll see this in a little bit when I'm drawing the clothes and the eyes and everything, but first I gotta draw the little bean body and the little arms. I really like how this one came out. I feel like she turned out really cute, so we're gonna give her some little bean toes, or feet, I guess. I wasn't really sure that I liked the little ones at first, but they really ended up growing on me. And then I give her these little arms that kind of match the bean aesthetic that we have going on for her. Then I went in and I had to figure out what color I wanted. So you can't actually see this process, but I had to figure out what brown I wanted to use for her outfit. So I start by drawing the top line of her pants, and then for some reason I skipped over to the little bralette, and then I go back to her skirt. So I'm not really sure why I did that out of order, but it worked. Then we move on, and I get a little bit of a darker brown, and I experiment a little bit with the eyes here. I wasn't quite sure what shape I wanted, how long I wanted the eyelashes to be, and all that good stuff, so it did take me a couple of tries to get it just right, but I really like how they ended up coming out. I feel like they look like, almost like little buttons, little button eyes, but in a not creepy Coraline kind of way. Then I go in and I have to figure out her little smile, so I decided to give her like this little almost like a smirk. And then we go in and have to add the orc teeth, of course, because orcs have those little, they're almost tusks. And I struggled with this a little bit because I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted them to be, and I haven't drawn characters with these kinds of teeth before. So it took me a minute to figure out exactly how I wanted them to be, and in the end they really didn't end out being completely perfect, but I think that adds a little bit of charm to her as well. Her little derpiness there kind of comes through with the teeth, I feel like. Then I went in and changed out my layer and my color so that we can get in to actually filling her in. Now with this, I do wish that I used a little bit of a darker outline because I feel like it would have looked a little better than the lighter one, especially with Cinnamoroll having the darker blue and then the like off-white blue on the inside, but it's okay because she ends up looking really cute anyway. I go ahead and I fill in pretty much everything, even underneath the clothes, with the green, so that we can go over it afterwards. And what I'm noticing here is that I'm going to have to deal with these bean body layers that are layering underneath the skirt as well. So I go in and I decide that I'm going to try and fill in some, but then I decide that's not going to work. So I went in with an eraser and I just took away those lighter green lines so that the outlines wouldn't show through when we are coloring in her clothes. So I had to do that for both the bralette and the skirt thing, that whatever you want to call it. And I do end up and going back to touch this up afterwards as well, because it is kind of hard to see the distinguishment between the color of the outline and the color of the body. Again, just because I didn't choose a very dark outline, they kind of ends up mashing together. And so I go in and I start coloring the clothes first so that I can do the touch-ups after. It's a lot easier to see on that darker brown color instead of the light green on green situation that we have going on before there's any color. And I believe there was more on the bralette that I had to take care of than the skirt, just because that seems to have more of the outline. I'm not really sure why, because they're both the same colors, but I do think that there was a little more to do on that bralette than there was on the skirt. But finally, we do end up getting through with it. I'm very, very picky about the little outlines, so you really can't tell when you're zoomed out. You can't really see those, but I was still being particular, so I wanted to make sure everything looked good. Then I realized that I need to erase this yellow line as well, because there is a yellow line above Cinnamoroll's head, so I just decided to do that while I had the eraser tool out, and then I finish up by coloring in her right, or I guess left, depending on how you want to see it, her arm. We are done with the orc. I'm checking her out. I like how she looks. I think she came out really cute. So then we move on, and the next prompt that we got was to draw a cute mushroom. And so I really like mushrooms, so I was happy with this. I changed the color again because I feel like the orange of the background that we had before is going to clash with the tan of the mushroom's stalk. So I did go ahead and change that, and this is the final color change that we have, so we do stay with this like almost dark periwinkle color. Here you can see me drawing the stalk as well as the gills underneath the mushroom. And I go ahead and draw the top almost layered over it so that I can get an accurate depiction of the ratio that I want. So then I go back and erase some of those other lines that I had that were kind of overlapping. After that, I decided that I want to extend the stalk a little bit because I feel like the gills are kind of pushing out a little too much. So I decided to go back in there and adjust how my ratio looks between the stalk and the gill area of the mushroom. So I adjust that shape and make sure that it's nice and going underneath the cap of the mushroom so that it doesn't look like it's almost like a extended other part of it. I then go through and draw little lines on the stalk, and then I draw the actual gills on the underside part of the mushroom. I made them really simple just because this is like a chibi style, you know? I didn't want to make it too complex. I then go in and choose my colors, and we start coloring. So I started with the top first, just because it is the biggest and easiest area to color in. Then I go in and I go to the gills and mess around a little bit with the colors here because again I chose a very light color for the outline. I decided that it was okay that it was darker this time. I felt like it provided a little bit of a contrast between the stalk / gills area and the cap of the mushroom. I then decided to add some nice little speckles or spots, I guess, to the mushroom in different sizes. Last but not least, our fourth prompt is to draw a happy sunflower, or yes, a sunflower face. So I decided to make it a happy sunflower face, you know, give him a little smile. But first I start with the inner portion of the sunflower, and then I go forth and draw out the petals. Petals tend to be a little difficult when you don't have a plan on where they're going to go, because they can end up being very lopsided. They can also end up being of different sizes and proportions and not looking like they come from the same flower. So I was trying to concentrate very hard on keeping my proportions pretty similar at least, and I feel like I did a good job of keeping that up. As you can see here, I am a little bit scared because there's not a whole lot of space left. There's not enough room for two exactly, but there's not enough room for just one to take it up, but I do end up fixing it to where it still looks decent. Then we go ahead and I touch up some of those lines because the yellow overlapped with the inside part on some of the areas, so I went ahead and recolored those in just so that it doesn't look so messy. After I'm done with that, I go ahead and decide what I'm going to do for the face. So I decided to go with a happy face, of course, because why would a sunflower not be happy, you know? It's a happy little sunflower in the garden. So I added these like happy curved, not really anime eyes, but just closed happy smile, I guess. And then I went in and added some rosy cheeks alongside the lips, just to make it even more cheery. After that, I choose a brown that is similar to our little inner circle outline, and I just go ahead and fill in the sunflower's face with brown. And at first I mess up and I do it all in one stroke without lifting the brush, and then I have to go back and redo it because I overlapped some of the lines, which happens a lot of times when you're drawing with digital because it's a lot easier than going back and erasing everything. Then I decide that I need to add the little seed spots on the sunflower to make it just more realistic without ruining the cartoony kind of vibes. And I do end up thinking that this looks a little bit odd, so I do end up correcting that in the end, but first I decide that I'm going to do the petals while I think about what to do about those spots, because they kind of ended up looking like chocolate chips on a chocolate chip cookie, and that is not what I was going for, obviously. So instead, we go in and we fill in the petals with this nice yellow color. Again, it is off of the original outline color, so I did make sure that they were not yellows that clashed. We wanted it to be that nice golden sunny color that sunflowers are known for. So I went through and I just filled each of those in, and this is probably the more time-consuming part of the coloring. After that, I am going to fix the spots that are on the sunflower, and I decide that I'm going to do that by making little crosses. So in a minute here, you will see me going in there and fixing just each and every one of those. At first, I wasn't sure that this was going to work, so I actually did have to do a little zoom out and make sure everything looked okay, but I did feel like this added a bit more texture to make it obvious what we were actually going for in this drawing. And then there they all are together. So I hope you guys like and enjoy the drawing that we did. If you see yours, obviously you can use it for whatever you would like to, as long as it's not to make money off of, and as long as you give credit. But if it is not your request, I would say probably not, just because I want to be respectful of all the viewers that actually took the time to put in the request. So thank you very much for watching, and we will see you guys next time.